They'd have a heck of a time with that tattooing today. Whatever Tom, Dick, and Harry, and Sally, and Mary out there's got tattoos from their butt to the top of their head to the bottom of their feet. They got to run their whole body through this thing, make sure there's a 666 number come out somewhere. They'll probably find it somewhere. Even inside their private parts, they got tattoos and piercings. Jesus. Well, I guess you're one of those scaredy cats that sit and bite your fingernails and wee-wee on yourself thinking about that dirty old Antichrist is going to show up at any moment. After the rapture takes place, of course. After the third temple's been built. After they found that red heifer. After the Jews finally see Jesus as their Messiah that they don't believe in. Well, anyway, we'll leave that up to Jerry Jenkins, Tim LaHaye, and Tommy Ice and gang, okay? My next point 6, was fight the good fight of faith. And then 7, we preach, warning every man, and then we went into that. So I'm going to start at point 8. Now, are you thoroughly bored yet? Okay. It just says, basically, in 2 Timothy 4:2, my text of point 8 is, preach the Word. Preach the Word. Well, this is the Word. If you're to talk about the paper and ink Word, this is it. Preach it. If you're talking about the quickened Word, that sharp sword Word, see, there's 2 words. I'm preaching out of this, the paper and ink, God, and I'm also speaking the Spirit Word. So I'm giving you a double edge. I'm coming forth with Scriptures, and I'm coming forth with the interpretation, at least I think it is, the quickening Word. Okay? So when you preach, now how many knows there's a difference between good sermons and bad sermons? There's what they call wet sermons and there's dry sermons. How many has ever sit under a dry sermon? Don't give me your hands, I know it's true. I sit under a pastor one time in my life. This guy would go on for 3 to 4 hours without stopping. And he was so unorthodox because he thought everything was Babylon. Of course, he was Babylon himself. He would not have a pulpit because that was too churchified. I like it because I can put my Bibles on it, plural. And he would not stand, so he had one of these bar stools that you get at the bars, and he'd just sit there and swivel this bar around in his big belly and had his Bible, and he would just go on for 3 to 4 hours non-stop trying to tell us about something I did not understand. To this day, my wife and I we once in a while talk about Mr. So-and-so. Can you ever remember anything about his sermon? And we both shake our heads and said, I couldn't tell you one thing that man taught. And we, every Sunday for a year and a half, we sat under this guy, and I couldn't tell you one sermon, even one principle this guy taught. I thought he is an expert on telling you nothing. Absolutely nothing. I didn't get nothing out of that. How can a man swivel in a chair for 4 straight hours reading the Bible and trying to interpret what it says and you not remember anything? Beats me. But it happened to me. Jesus. Now that's what you call dry sermonettes. His was not a dry sermonette. His was a smorgasbord. And he would burp because he ate too much. And honestly, this is the truth. The guy was a slob. And he had stains all over his white shirt and over his tie because what he did, just kind of slobber out a little bit. And I could overlook all his big belly and burping and swiveling and farting. I could overlook all that, but I couldn't understand what he's trying to tell me because I wanted to know something. I couldn't tell you one sermon this guy taught. Not one. And his sermons were 3 to 4 hours. It's not no, I'm going 45 minutes a day and I go fast. But I tell you, honey, he went 4 hours and I could tell you one thing the man taught. The only thing I remember in all the years I knew this man, that he prayed over a goat and it got healed. That I remember. I thought, well, you know why I remember that? Because I believed in divine healing. And the only person he ever prayed it was a goat and got healed. And he was happy about a goat being healed. Okay, well, whatever turns you on. I'm glad the goat got healed. Okay, preach the word, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering or suffering long. That's what it means. And doctrine. The doctrine, now we have more doctrine than they did in the early church. The early church was in the making when this book was being put together. Those letters circulating that now we read, called scriptures, are called the books of the Bible. Those were letters written. Those were being circulated in those days. But they did in those days still have a form of doctrine being formulated, because it does say that they had doctrine, but not like we got it now, because we have it all, honey. We got it all. We got all there is in this book. So they tell us. And if you don't have the King James Version, you're going to go to hell, because it's God's holy book. So they tell me. Well, okay. So good old King James, fine. If you want to believe that, that's okay. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with long suffering and doctrine. So, in teaching and preaching, okay, do the work of evangelist. Preach to the lost as we do. Tell them they're going to go to hell. Tell them they need Jesus. Tell them why they need Jesus. Tell them why they need to give their heart to the Lord. Don't just say you're going to go to hell without telling them why. All that's in part of the evangelistic work to the lost. But when it comes to the saved, like some of you in here are. Did you catch what I just said? And some of you in here are. Then we have to bear the sword. You have to reprove. You have to rebuke. You have to exhort, which is I do, which we do all the time. And it gets very tiring. Just like when you raise a family. You do the same thing in a natural family. Johnny, don't do that. Put that shotgun. Johnny, don't point the gun. You know that kind of stuff. Especially at me. Put that butcher knife down, Johnny. Johnny! How many knows there's little Johnnies that do things like that? And little Susie likes to stick her little hairpins in the light sockets, and all of a sudden she comes and one day her hair is all curled up, really looking kind of fuzzy. Well, you know what happened, don't you? She got halfway electrocuted. You have to tell them this. Don't do this. You have to tell grown-ups, don't do this. Right? You have to reprove, you have to correct, you have to instruct. Sometimes you have to excommunicate. Get your fat rear section moving and out of my congregation if you're not going to live right. That's what you've got to do. They don't do that in the PC churches. Could you see Joel Osteen telling anybody to leave his congregation? Well, that guy would die of gastric problems. If he thought he had to kick somebody out of his congregation, he loves to hear people say, oh, Joel Osteen, 50,000 member congregation. Wow, Joel, I'm impressed. 50,000 idiots sitting under your stupid, dumbass teachings that you can't even tell me how to get saved and what sin is. Wonderful. You can't rebuke homosexuality. You can't tell us that abortion is evil. You can't tell us anything. You just say, well, it's not God's best. And I just don't know. You leave that up to God. Well, what are you, a preacher or something? Well, I thought Joel was supposed to be a preacher. But when it comes to preaching the word, he doesn't even know what it means. You can't tell anybody they're sinners because that's not polite. How would you like to sit under a pastor who told you everything was just nice? Oh, we've met them. We've had people tell us this in the old days. And come to us and says, I sit in that church for 5 years. I never gave my life to Christ. And I would have the deacons, when I walk into church, they would shake my hand and say, good morning, brother, how are you? And they'd call me a brother. And I said, I was full of pornography. I was full of drugs. I was a drunkard. I was a wife beater. And he was calling me a brother in the Lord. Somebody's got it screwed up.
Today, we salute you, Mr. Once a Month, all three services, Sunday Greeter Guy.
Once a month, all three services, Sunday Greeter Guy.
Only you know how to work the front door, allowing entry into the house of the Lord.
You're letting all the cold air out.
Armed with worship guides and writing utensils, you welcome everyone. Well, almost everyone with a smile.
I'm gonna need that pen back.
With your advanced training, nothing can stop you in your climb up the ladder to success.
Welcome to Walmart.
Whether it's a high five, handshake, or chest bump, you touch everyone that walks through our doors. Literally.
Once a month, all three service, Sunday Greeter.
Stevens Creek
Well,
Church,
you could have a darling like we saw over there in the Ukraine. I have to think this is the most vile thing I've seen. I'm sure there's more vile now with the homosexuals. But we was in the Ukraine. We went over there to see how our old brothers and sisters suffered under communism. And we expected to find a church that old people stand up and tell how they survived through all that. And guess what greeted us at the door? Now, I hope you don't get embarrassed about this. And my wife knows where I'm coming from because she was right there with me. But we had this darling-looking, beautiful woman greeting us at the door. And I'm not kidding you, friend. She had on, it was a dress, but it was a see-through dress. And her panties and her bra were just as vivid as if she didn't have a dress on. I thought, wow, this is even embarrassing me. And I come from a world of sin. I saw nudity and I was a fornicator. This is embarrassing. That woman was greeting us. You could see right through her clothing. It was thin gauze. And I don't have to tell you that when we sat in that stupid place, they played hard rock and roll music. I got up and walked out and sit out there for a while they was carrying all their stupid loud music. They had some jerk up there with a shaved bald head and earring and I expect to hear something from people surviving communism. All I saw was almost nudity and stupid rock music. And I was so disappointed in going to the Ukraine. That's in old Russia. And all the troubles we went through to getting there, and this greeted us at the door. Well, you'd think you was in some whorehouse that's going to usher you into a bedroom or something. Now, am I exaggerating? My wife is sitting right there. She'll tell you this was true. Now, I guess that they will greet you now in nudity all the way, I suppose. But that was bad. Now, you got to realize this was in the 80s. 90s. Yeah, early 1990s. Things have progressed worse. What is it now? Late 1990. Well, I'm getting a little old. I've been to so many places, so many different times. Okay, late 90s in Ukraine, we went up there in an old Russian train. I'm not going to tell you how bad that was. And this beautiful woman greeting us almost, well, as I told you there. Okay. Number 9, these things speak, exhort, rebuke with all authority. Titus 2:15. You got it, almost the same thing. So you got Paul and you got Titus saying the same thing. Rebuke, exhort, and do these things. You can't do that today. You try to do that to a pastor today, or a pastor do at this congregation, I guess what's going to happen? He'll get a pink slip that says you're fired, or the people will sue him. They're scared today. They are petrified of being sued if they tell anybody they're sinning or anything wrong with them. I know we've been sued, and I know how it goes. But we're still doing it. These things speak and exhort and rebuke with all authority. What authority are you talking about? You're talking about authority of the Holy Spirit. You're not talking about your personal authority. Now, I know people's got personal authority they use, but he's in reference to that. He's talking about this authority of the Spirit of the living God. We are supposed to do this. So these people that don't rebuke the people that's committing sin in their congregations, they're not shepherds. They're hirelings, friend. They're not shepherds. They don't oversee your soul. They don't care about you. You're just a prostitute for those pimps. That's all you are. They're pimps, you're prostitutes. You may as well learn that right now. They don't give a jack frat and a beanstalk and a potato patch about your soul. All they care about is numbers and money, sweetie. That's the name of the religious game today. Money and numbers. The numbers game and the money game. Keep that in mind when you sit in one of these smelly whorehouses and you think your pastor's so darling because he never hits on sin issues. You know it right then. That man is not a man of God to start with. Or that man's got plenty of sin in his own life that he don't want to get out. Okay, point 10. Here you have again, rebuke sharply, that they may be sound in the faith. Titus 1:13. We are to rebuke sharply. We're not to say, now brother, let's go into my office where it's private. Now you sit on my brown leather couch with those beautiful brass tacks that cost me $5,000. You sit there on that end now, okay? And I'll sit at my big mahogany desk with all my pencils, my paper, and just really beautiful. I got my PhD plaque up there. I got my other degrees up there. I got my plaque from the mayor up there. I mean, you can see I'm somebody. I got it all around me. Now, you tell me your problem. You tell me what your problem is. Well, I just have this infatuation with killing you, maggot! Well, now, calm down. And he rings a little buzzer, and in walks 2 huge, muscle-bound, tattooed, pierced idiots. What are your balls? Would you kindly take this disturbed specimen of rotting humanity out of my desk and away from my room, please? Get him off my couch, away from my desk, and bring in the room deodorizer. Thank you. This is what you got today. Counseling. The hell with counseling! Rebuke, idiot! Oh, you can't do that, My God, you can't do that. I've had the police tell me this. I've had lawyers tell me this. I've had preachers tell me this. You know, my God, I've had police tell me this, shaking in their blue uniforms, don't ever call anybody a name, because they were scared stiff that someone might sue them. Well, friend, I have been sued. I have been demonized. I have been incarcerated. I've been to jail. I've been handcuffed. I've been in those places. I've been there and I've done that. I don't care. Okay? I frankly just don't give a hoot.